Yes, all the Startup Chile and Corfo teams is more than proud of all of our women entrepreneurs. We will be announcing the winner of our two demo days at the end of this event. So remember, please, to vote for your favorite pitch on our landing page. Thank you very much, and congratulations all of you entrepreneurs for being today, for to arrive today to this event. So now I am so excited to introduce you all to the keynote speaker of our event, directly for Kirkland, Washington, the amazing Charlotte Yarkoni. A big clap for you, Charlotte. Thank you very much for being for all of us here today. Charlotte is the Microsoft Corporate Vice President, Cloud Plus All. She has held various executive positions, including president of the Tesla Software Group and vice president position at ELMC and AT&T. She is an electrical engineer, computer and science major of the University of California, Berkeley. Charlotte, it is a big honor for me to have you streaming for all the Chilean ecosystem today. Thank you once again very much. Right now, what we have here is corporate partners, investors, mentors, and obviously entrepreneurs, all of us watching this streaming, probably near to 1,000. I do believe a woman with your experience in technology and also in business has truly important lessons for all of us. So thank you once again. A very welcome to Startup Chile.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to be here. Shall we get started? I actually think someone is going to be doing some slides for me. Yes. So if we could tee those up, that would be great. Our discussion today is really about your opportunity in a time of crisis, as we are passing through a very particular time for humanity. In times of challenge and crisis, startups actually have the ideas and the execution that can set the new normal. And I'm really proud to be here in a room full of women leading the charge. And I'm wishing you success every step of the way. I actually joined a little early and got to hear some of the pitches, and it was really just amazing to see the progress of several of the companies. Truly exciting. So thank you for sharing that. And I was glad I could join a little early and hear some of that. So first, perhaps a little bit about me, if we could move to the next slide. I've actually lived the role of a technologist and a woman in technology for several decades now. That feels like it dates me, but it's true. As you mentioned, I actually started out in an engineering discipline in college. I actually went to University of California as well as Georgia Tech. At the time, I had received a private scholarship that would afford me tuition and books if I actually went into an engineering discipline, and got accepted to one of the top 3 schools for that engineering discipline. So I started out my college career at University of California in electrical engineering and computer science. But we will probably mention pivoting as part of this discussion, and this would be my first pivot, I would say. Ironically enough, I decided at that time I did not enjoy computer science. I remember I was sitting in the 4th subfloor basement at Berkeley, writing a video game in Lisp, which was a programming language at the time. And again, I feel like I'm dating myself. And I decided what I really wanted to do was statistics and queuing theories. And so I transferred into an industrial engineering major, or as the engineering schools would call it, imaginary engineering. Berkeley had a great program, but they were not in the top 3, hence why I transferred to Georgia Tech and graduated from Georgia Tech in that discipline. Ironically, my first job out of college was actually building a software package for what is now Accenture, but it was Anderson Consulting at the time, that was around queuing theories for a manufacturing assembly line. And I immediately gravitated towards the value of technology, being able to solve problems in areas where previously it was either being solved manually or through rudimentary electronics, and all of a sudden embraced computers and technology and the industry for really what it represented, which is a way to actually empower people to do more, empower businesses to do more. And that's really been the fabric that's kind of led me through my career. As you mentioned, I've had many roles. I actually moved from engineering into leadership roles relatively early in my career. So, for example, I did work at what's now AT&T. I had a very large organization, and I left that to go be CEO of a startup, which was quite a dramatic change. But at that point in time, I was wanting to actually learn and understand what it meant to run a business. While I appreciated innovation and I appreciated technology, what I really yearned for is, how do you take technology and turn it into a value proposition? How do you monetize it? How do you market it? How do you sell it? What are the finances behind running a P&L, not just a cost center? That was a very valuable lesson for me. I went from there and also spent a lot of time in various ways just beyond doing that startup, focusing on innovation. In fact, prior to coming to Microsoft and even during my time at Microsoft, many of my roles have been about focusing on emerging technologies, emerging sectors. How do we think about getting into new businesses, new industries? For example, during my time at VMware, I had the team that built Cloud Foundry, which at the time was the industry's first open source platform as a service capability. I had the opportunity to actually move with my family and work overseas in Australia for a few years prior to coming to Microsoft. And there we were very focused on, how do we think about what are the investments we need to make to move our business from a discounted cash flow, fixed asset business model to a net present value set of software services over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so we did everything from focus on venture capitalist style funding for strategic investments. We started accelerators in the areas we had critical mass and presence. And we also acquired companies in adjacent industries as the advent of OTT came about in the media sector. And then, I get to Microsoft, where my role is I am part of the cloud and AI organization. I'm very fortunate to have a very broad landscape where I think about customer journeys, and customers are everything from individual developers and how do we advocate for developers for our products and services, to certain communities like startups. How do we think about engaging and skilling as a fundamental foundation that in social responsibility that we have as a company, to how do we just get easier to do business with in terms of how do we transact and think about the business models. So it's a really exciting job. And at Microsoft, of course, we are innovating all the time, but we look very closely to our communities and the customers and partners we work with for what's important to them and how they're innovating and how we can best serve them. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I'm just a complete believer in how critical it is to invest in startup-sourced innovation and innovation more broadly during any times. And it does start with folks like you and the work that you do. So maybe we could segue and talk about the Chile ecosystem, because I'd love to share some thoughts from our perspective on that as well. So if we could go to the next slide. At Microsoft, we believe that to really deliver on a promise, that at any time, startups are the source of critical innovation for our customers in the world. You actually need a strong foundation, a strong local ecosystem to foster, support, and create opportunities for startups. The existence of that ecosystem in Chile and with Startup Chile is what enables us to be here together today, and what enables me to be able to speak to a room full of amazing female-led startups and those in the ecosystem that support you. This is what I see when I look at Chile and Startup Chile today. you are part of a very strong ecosystem that can not only generate winning companies, but do it in uncertain times and times of crisis like we find ourselves. These are the building blocks for a tech ecosystem, and we are celebrating that in 10 years' time, Startup Chile has been building and positioning Chile as a hub for innovation and for attracting entrepreneurs from all over the world. I'm so proud of the work that we have done over the years with Startup Chile since their creation in 2010. A local ecosystem, again, is key to fostering an entrepreneurial mindset and the environment to nurture it. And when we look at the building blocks of any tech ecosystem, we can see how Startup Chile has been an integral part of the cycle. For example, creating programs like Founders Lab to support founders and create local supplies of talent. The S Factory to support female-led startups and create role models and mindset to foster female leadership in the tech economy. From seed acceleration to validating products in the first programs. And the work with CORFO to foster the creation of VCs that help create and scale startups, thus helping the exit markets, which are also necessary to completing the cycle. The evolution along these 10 years has been what has helped Chile to be positioned within the leaders of female-led startups. And actually, S Factory is one of the forces behind these building blocks, helping female founders create their MVPs, move up the chain, and activating opportunities that are attracting startups from around the world to scale from Chile across regions. You know, in a world where our recent data actually shows that only 8.7% of funded startups are female-led in LATAM, and where only 11% of the decision makers in VC funds are women, this room and this group is truly exceptional. That's why we've partnered from the very beginning with Startup Chile to create opportunities, creating opportunities for people like you, willing to take risks and create solutions, and to launch companies. And of course, you are launching your companies into a strange and uncertain set of times. So let's move to the next time and talk about where we are today. Because make no mistake, you are building your company at a time when the world is just not normal. There are acute new problems that need to be solved. Problems of the moment like remote work, school, and life, and healthcare. This means that there are new use cases and you need to be paying attention to what they are. New problems that people are facing today. And you need to be asking yourself, do you have a solution? Even if it's not perfect. Times of crisis reward companies that are highly agile due to the transformational nature of this moment in time. Can we move the slides? Is anyone else seeing the slides move? Because I did not see them. There we go. For example, who would have thought that 6 months ago, how much effort would be placed today in IoT and robotic startups to figure out touchless trash pickup, or enhanced automated health screening in high transit points of offices, transportation centers, etc., or the transformation of remote diagnosis to avoid risk of transmission of disease. One startup that we actually work with here at Microsoft out of the United Kingdom, Precog, deals in crowd security and realized that they have a solution that can help with the tracing and spread of disease in crowds, something they would have never thought about before. There is also going to be a new normal. We don't yet know what it is, or what it will look like, or how different it will be from what normal used to represent for us. But in times of crisis, it generally leads to something different. And those companies who have the foresight and the luck to understand it definitely have the advantage. For example, Taobao in China, the world's largest e-commerce website, was founded when people were stuck at home in 2013 due to SARS. That does sound familiar, doesn't it? Look at macro trends that are important and impacting society beyond e-commerce, and look closer and you will see opportunities where your technology might already be applicable. Again, I was super impressed by the startups I heard about earlier today, and my encouragement to you is how to think about those in this new normal and as the world around us is changing. If we could go to the next slide, please. I'm personally inspired by 3 female-led startups that Microsoft has actually been working with over the past few years that represent this. Right here in Chile, my team has shared with me the progress made by Lab4U. All of you in the audience probably know Lab4U, but if you don't, you should. It teaches basic science principles in physics, chemistry, and biology by enabling experiments from a smartphone or a tablet. This is always relevant, but in today's world, what was once an interesting use case is now actually critical in this new normal, and their market is expanding. All of a sudden, the work that they were doing already, moving to a remote way of working, has really enabled them to become even more relevant. At Indiman, Loreto is transforming one of the biggest industries in Chile with the use of analytics and AI by improving productivity and security in the workplace. Mining companies, by definition, are local and have had limited availability to do remote work. So they haven't traditionally looked for the tools that they use beyond the local environment. With this new situation, remote work is becoming way more accepted. Customers are looking well beyond their own borders for new solution, and Indiman is growing beyond Chile. And then let's look overseas to Pakistan. Sadafi Abid has founded Circle Women Association, designed to create upskilling opportunities for talented girls and women from low-income households, and works closely with local colleges, universities, and communities. Since the onset of COVID-19, they have gone fully digital to support the growing population out of colleges and unemployed. They have found a space to create an open source learning management system hosted on Azure App Services so that students can learn remotely, review lessons, engage and submit their assignments, and their revenues have actually increased 6x during the time of COVID, which is truly impressive. Each of these companies inspire me, and I hope they inspire you. They are building, they are finding spaces to create and focus through the tough times of crisis, and they are learning the lessons we all are about how to succeed in today's world. So I thought I would share some lessons that I have found as some closing remarks. If we could go to the next slide, please. My team has worked with thousands of startups over the world, and we continue to do so throughout the current crisis, even since it started emerging at the beginning of the year. There are some simple lessons that can go a long way and are needed in addition to the hard work you're already putting in to realize your dream. First things first, you need to be able to take care of yourself. It is not personal. You are expected to execute at an extraordinarily high level of ability and agility, and you need to be able to make the tough calls ASAP. Any delay will limit your capacity to react and take away from your business and yourself. So please take care of yourself, eat well, exercise, drink lots of water, and share with your partner, friend, family, loved ones what you're going through. Second, I would say you need to think differently about what you have already built. You've probably built an amazing team, but runway and expenses are always scarce, yet needed to survive. Assess your team, understand and find the positions that are at risk, and more importantly, take a hard look at the technology you have, the unique problems the world is facing, and then can you identify new use cases and put them into action immediately while not having to focus on products that may have negative contribution. We've talked about several examples, and I'll just give you one more. Whiteboard Coordinator in the US uses machine vision to help in the operating room. They realized that the hardware that they already had placed in hospitals can help ensure thermal screening of everyone going in and out of the building. It's a new opportunity, and they were able to use mostly their existing technology. That's my encouragement to you. Think about the new normal. Pick a behavior you think will durably change and invest. Focus. And as always, cash is king. We just don't know what the economy is going to do, but people are cautious. Don't assume you'll have an easy time fundraising, or don't assume you'll have an easy time in customer acquisition, because it is uncertain times. All of these lessons are globally applicable, but we all know the work starts locally, and it definitely starts with you. So we'll move to the next slide, and it's really the opportunity, I think, to take some questions and answers. You know, I will just close by saying this, in a time of challenge and crisis, technology, once again, is always the enabler, and it will help create change and make the world better. And we're looking to folks like you to help be part of that. So what will you do? And what questions can I answer?
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for this presentation. And actually, your recommendations for our founders and actually for the whole ecosystems are absolutely key. Thanks also Microsoft for being with the Startup Chile from the very beginning. It's really valuable for all of us. Yes, I have a couple of questions for you. The first, I would like to have your impression about this. In Chile, we have plenty of national traditional companies that did amazing and went multinational. Now they somehow know that they have to innovate to keep up all the change in market and societies. However, they still are not very aware about the value of working with startups and entrepreneurs. So I would like to know, could you tell us from your experience why you consider is valuable for the start corporate venture practices in these traditional companies?
I think there's a few reasons why you want to invest in your local startup ecosystem if you're a company based in a region or a set of regions. Number one, it is an amazing source of innovation, and inevitably large companies need that. Microsoft is a great example. We have very talented engineers. We've been a market leader in numerous places and numerous spaces throughout the tech history in our career. But we deeply understand that all great ideas are not going to come within. In fact, if we believed that, we would fail as a company. And so it's very important to us to ensure that they are healthy and thriving startup ecosystems across all the communities that we serve, because they represent great sources of innovation. Sometimes how we think about adapting our products, because they're innovations that we will acquire and integrate into our products and services. Sometimes they're innovations on behalf of our customers or specific industries that we need to adapt our products to as they become more mainstream. And inevitably, if you don't recognize that, you know, you're never going to be the one with all the answers. You actually are part of an ecosystem, and it's very essential that every part of that ecosystem be healthy. That's kind of the operating principle that we see and why we think startups are so important. I think additionally, startups represent, you know, many different aspects beyond just innovation of technology. They represent key sources of talent, you know, depending on the ecosystem you look at, and it is nuanced by region. For example, in the US, in Silicon Valley, most of the people that are in the startup ecosystem there are right out of university or some form of education. They haven't been in the corporate world, and therefore they come with a lot less curated thought processes about how work should be done today. And therefore, they're a little bit more dramatic in their innovation in terms of thinking about new ways or potentially new problems to go solve, because they just don't come with the bias, right, that someone who's been in the corporate workforce would have for many years. In other parts of the world, the ecosystem looks different. You find people in Australia who typically have worked somewhere else and they self-fund their startup. And so they're a different age group and they have a different mindset, but they also offer a very different, you know, capability into the ecosystem, because they're actually building a scarce resource, which is engineering talent, by offering more tech-focused companies to be able to find employment for. So there's a variety of reasons why it is important. And I think if you are a company and you're thinking about how do I continue to innovate my products, my services, my business? How do I look to the community that I serve and I sell to understand what's important to them? How do I think about talent in the ecosystems where I run my businesses? Startups are an essential part of that, which is why it's important to be engaged and ensure those ecosystems in your area are healthy and thriving.
Well, thank you. I absolutely agree with you. And we have some couple of minutes, and I would like to give you another question. Our female circle today, this event, is made to be a space to reflect on how different are the challenges for women to success in business and technology. Yesterday, actually, we had a panel with 4 amazing Chilean women leaders about the challenges that they have been facing in the ecosystem. And actually now I would like to know and to hear your perspective. Let me know a little bit about you. I've been in United States, the women graduating on STEM careers are 25% of the total. So could you share with us a little bit about what is your personal experience in this field? What challenges due to the gender you had to face, and actually why you are the great female leader that you are now in the world?
You know, I reflect on this a lot because I get asked to talk about it a lot, and I think the older I get, the wiser I can be just about my personal journey. I will share maybe just a few data points. I remember when I first went to university, and I actually started out at Berkeley. And at the time, this double major, electrical engineering, computer science, was a new program. And so there had been, I think, 200 of us students that were accepted into the program for the year that I joined. And I don't remember how many women were in that program. I actually don't remember there being another woman in that program. That's not saying there wasn't, but that's how scarce we were. And I kind of fast forward to today, where I actually go and spend a lot of time at universities giving talks, working with students in STEM disciplines and them thinking about getting into the workforce, as well as early in career people at Microsoft. And what's wonderful to me is when I walk into those forums and those rooms today, there's a lot of diversity, and it's not just women, right? It's different race, different creed, different countries. And I love it because I can just, that's a very good moment in time for me to witness the progress that's happened in my career lifetime. But I still think we have more to do. And one of the things that my personal view about diversity is as follows.